Here with me right now, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, welcome.
Hi, Trish.
Hello. You know, we're watching all these pictures that are coming into us right now from Venezuela, and it's clearly a very fluid situation, as you know. But what, sir, is your latest information?
Well, it's a little bit more of yesterday. Yesterday was rough, and probably tomorrow is going to be very bad. And it's a terrible thing. People are starving. People are dying. There's no food. There's no water. It's just a terrible situation. You see what's going on, and we're doing everything we can do, short of, you know, the ultimate. There are people that would like to have us do the ultimate, but we have a lot of options open. But when we look at what's going on there, it's an incredible mess.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know you've said this before, and you say that all options are on the table. I know there was a big NSC meeting today, and you get all your top people trying to go through various scenarios, trying to figure out what to do next. Really, what are our options right now, Mr. President?
Well, some of them I don't even like to mention to you because they're pretty tough. But, you know, we see what's happening with respect to the hunger. You don't see things like this anymore. And they don't want food. Maduro won't accept food. I think he should, frankly. I think it would be better for him if he did, because you have people that are starving and they become desperate, and you see what's happening on the streets. And the streets are very dangerous, and it's very dangerous for, I mean, frankly, everybody. And we haven't seen a scene like this in many, many years. And when you think how wealthy this country was, Trish, this country was one of the wealthy countries, not just there, but this was one of the wealthy countries of the world. And now you look at what's going on, where they don't even have food, where they can't get water. The water is filthy dirty. And people are getting sick. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
No, look, it's a tragedy, and it's a tragedy that's so close to home, less than 4 hours from Miami. What do you think about Nicolas Maduro?
Well, he's certainly run it tough, but I think he's losing a lot of control. He really did go out and do things that are bad. It's an extension of his previous, and previous was bad. It was unacceptable. I mean, it was horrible and unacceptable. It's really a failure of socialism, and I don't know, maybe this is beyond socialism, but this is socialism, and you see what happens. Now they're talking about it for our country. I can't believe it's real, you know, when you hear some of the things being said, but they're talking about socialism for our country. That's not going to happen, especially with how well we're doing. But Maduro is he's a tough player, and it's awfully tough to play closer when nobody has food. And
he's still there. He's still there. I mean, despite the fact that they have no food, they have no water, and they're marching in the streets. Secretary Pompeo told me, sir, yesterday that Maduro was ready to leave. He was like, you know, packed up, ready to go on the tarmac, but the Russians stopped him. What does that say? What are the Russians doing down there, and how does that change things for us, or escalate, if you would, unfortunately,
well, it's not
things
acceptable.
For us?
If that's the case, it's not acceptable. You hear a lot of different rumors. You hear rumors that he was. You hear rumors that he was leaving a different way. I'm hearing rumors about Russia, and I'm hearing a lot about Cuba. And we'll do a very, very strong embargo and sanction on Cuba. It depends on what's going to happen. They have a lot at stake too, because it's not like they're exactly boomtown. I used to say Boomtown, USA, but they're awfully close to the
that's not going to work.
And somehow I'm thinking to myself, I better not say that. But they're not a boomtown, that's for sure. They're not doing well, and with the right moves, Cuba could do very well. You know, we could open it up, but we're going to end up closing it up if they don't get out of Venezuela. So we're trying to help people. We want to deliver food and medical. There's no medical. You have children that are unbelievably sick. There's no medical. They have doctors without medicine. And it's great people. The Venezuelan people, I know a lot of people from Venezuela. They're incredible people. They work so hard, and it just went, boy, they had the wrong form of government. They had the wrong two people. and Maduro's just been not doing the job.
Ain't that the truth? I remember back before Chavez, when Venezuela had a much more prosperous future ahead of itself, and now you look at the last 20 years and how that is disintegrated. Let me ask you about Juan Guaido, who's actually coming up a little bit later on the show tonight, Mr. President. He will be here, and you know, look, you mentioned the Venezuelan people and how much you like them. This is a gentleman who's clearly very, very brave and is a walking target, frankly, because Nicolas Maduro doesn't like anybody who is a threat to him. So what happens if they do something, if they were to jail or they were to execute, God forbid, Juan Guaido, the man we recognize as the president of that nation?
Well, I hope it doesn't happen. I've been watching him on the streets and right on the streets where people are being killed, and he's out there doing rallies. He's actually very brave in a true sense. But I've been watching him and watching the moves, and you know, there's a lot of spirit for him, and it is from a constitutional standpoint is the way it's supposed to be. He was elected. They should be running it now. At least we could go in and help them a little bit with, and maybe a lot, depending on what. I mean, the advantage they have is they have oil. It's mortgaged out to the hilt between China and Russia and all the money that's been poured in there over the years. They just sucked money out of everybody in order to get, you know, it's a terrible situation. It's like an incredible thing because they have mortgaged their oil almost to the maximum, but we'll see what happens there. You know, you wonder what happens to, that's called Foreclosureville, USA, I guess. But China's in, and
except
Russia's
not USA,
in,
but China's there, Russia's there, and Cuba as well.
When you think about it, though, what they have, what has to be done, you really do. Essentially, it's called a country foreclosure. The place is so bad and so dangerous, and all the wealth, but the wealth is all mortgaged out. But so something's going to have to be done even there, because the amount of money that's loaned for that oil, you know, the loans for that oil, they don't give them any breathing room. So it's not what people think.
Okay, so you bring up something, though, that you know what your critics are going to say. By the way, they're already saying this. I mean, so you have the Ilhan Omars of the world right now that are saying, oh, this is just about oil. The only reason the United States of America cares about Venezuela is because they have such a massive oil supply. What do you say to that?
Well, it's wrong, and it's what it is it's a humanitarian thing. When you look at what's happening, we would really like to see a successful country. We liked it the way it was before this group got in there, and the predecessor, I guess they say, was worse. I'm not sure. I think maybe Maduro was worse.
Was pretty bad. I don't know. You can flip a coin.
He started. I was asking somebody the other day with a great knowledge of Venezuela who was worse. And frankly, but you know, Chavez started the process, and now it's really been just wiped out. Sure. The whole thing is wiped out.
People have no rights, for sure. And don't forget, I mean, they had high oil prices back then.
Right, and I knew Venezuela. I understood Venezuela. And a lot of great Venezuelan people living in Miami, and this should not be happening. So we'll see what happens. I think
let me ask you.
A lot of things will be going on over the next week, and maybe sooner than that. We'll see what happens.
All right. Liz, you mentioned Cuba in there, which brings me amazingly to infrastructure, because I remember the vice president telling me way back in October that he had some concerns about Venezuela and Cuba actually funding some of these caravan groups that are coming up to our border. So that brings us back to a subject very near and dear to your heart, which is the wall. I know that you met with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer recently, and there's talk of a $2 trillion infrastructure plan, which is just enormous. Is any of that money, Mr. President, for the wall?
Well, we're not going to need it because we have it from other sources. We're building the wall. And by next year, the end of next year, we will have probably around 400 miles of wall up. We're building a lot of it now. We've given out a lot of contracts. We have a lot of contracts that have been let, and we're building a lot of wall. And unfortunately, you know, it's a massive area that we have, what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, 400 miles is not going to do it.
No, but well, it's going to do a lot of it because we're adding that onto some of the things that we've already renovated. And, you know, we've actually done a lot of work, and we're doing it. It would have been a lot easier if we had the money. You know, originally people were talking about 25 billion. You don't have to spend that much. It's not nearly that much. We've cut it down. I've actually gotten a better wall for much less money, and we're getting great speed out of it, too. But we have it from different sources and different parts of government, including the military. The Army Corps of Engineers has done a really good job. And
okay, I want to be clear. So you're telling me this wall is happening? It's happening. Aside from the $2 trillion in infrastructure, none of that money would go to the wall. But you're going to get the money from other sources to make sure it goes up.
It's being built right now. I mean, as we speak, it's being built. And a lot of it. So, and again, if somebody would have said you're going to have 400 miles, you know what 400 miles is? 400 miles, that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. And we'll have that done by the end of the year, next year. Okay. And and we're trying to pick, you know, we're building it in big sections, and we're trying to pick the sections that not necessarily the best for construction, but the best for keeping the people out and keeping the drugs out. And, you know, it's so bad.
Let me ask you something. I know. Let me ask you something, because, you know, I think conservatives and certainly you, sir, have gotten painted as being mean for wanting this wall and wanting this barrier. But you've also said, look, you know, I want to roll out the red carpet for the right kind of people. We need to be bringing people here legally the right way. How would you do that? And do you think, I mean, could you be the guy actually that gets immigration reform, which I have always thought is a very bipartisan issue, really and truly through?
I hope so, and we're going to be submitting something over the next 2 weeks where we have a merit-based system. We need people. Look, I have companies coming back into the United States like you wouldn't believe. You've reported it. I mean, Toyota's coming in with $14 billion, and many of the car companies are going into Michigan and going into all of the different Ohio and Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. They're coming into all of these states, and they're coming in tremendously. I mean, it's incredible what's happening. We need people, to be honest. We have a lot of, you know, we have a very low unemployment rate. We have the lowest rate we've had in 51 years. We're going to soon set the record. And all of that's good, but we do have to be able to, you know, power up these companies that are coming in. They're not going to be able to come in if they're not going to be able to get people. So a lot of that's happening.
No, look, economic growth is going to open that opportunity.
Well, look at what happened. We just did 3.2, and frankly, if we would have had the Obama interest rates, you know, they kept them very low, which is not necessarily good. But if we would have had those low interest rates, we could have been much higher than that. But 3.2 is a number that they haven't hit in 14 years.
3.2, I'll give you that. It's pretty darn good. You've got very low unemployment, best numbers, certainly within minority communities and women as well. So that's all a lot to be proud of. Let me turn to the news today. My goodness, did you see this? I'm sure you did. You must have caught parts of it. Attorney General Barr there with his testimony. Fox has learned that Attorney Barr is not actually going to go to the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow. How come?
Well, I guess they want to treat him differently than they have anybody else. And for many, many years, they've never done it this way, where they're bringing in outside counsel or something. And that's not the way, you know, you elect people, they're supposed to be able to do their own talking. But he did a fantastic job today, I'm told. I got to see some of it. He did a fantastic job. And it's all a big hoax, this whole thing with Russia. It turned out there is no collusion. There is no obstruction. You covered it better than, frankly, almost anybody, if not anybody. But the whole thing it's just a terrible blot on our country and what it represents. But there was never obstruction. There was never collusion. You look at it, it's all just, it's a political game. Now, I'll tell you, on the other side, there's plenty to be talking about. They covered, I heard, very much with Strzok and Page and the insurance policy and all of the things that happened that are so terrible, so disgusting, frankly. Comey, and you look at all the Democrats, they all wanted to fire Comey until I fired him. You know, Schumer, every one of them, I would say practically every one of them, they wanted him out. And then as soon as he's gone, they're all holier than thou. Oh, that's such a terrible thing to do. Look, It's
well,
all
politics. It's politics.
It's terrible. But
I would just
the AG today.
I would say to you, and thank you for the compliments. What I would say to you on that is, and I think you know me well enough by now. I want what's right, what's fair, and I've called you out, and I'll continue calling you out if there's something I don't think is right. But listen, this is. I read the entire report. I spent Easter weekend, Mr. President, reading every single page of that thing, and I came away saying, well, there was volume. Yeah, my family really appreciated it, but you know, volume 1 left me saying, what the heck did we do? And then volume 2 just had me saying, well, for goodness sakes, why is there a volume 2 when you discovered in volume 1 that you never had a problem? So you've now got Attorney General Barr being subjected to the politics of the moment. What do you think ultimately happens? Is this going to go into 2020?
Well, I think people are tired of it. The big thing was collusion, because, you know, collusion is a whole different ballgame. And as you say, when there's no conspiracies, there's no crime, there's no anything. In fact, I guess they said the campaign repulsed efforts to come in. But, you know, when you look at the other
I read that, and I saw that. They couldn't get close to you guys. Volume 1, read it.
They tried to, and they probably tried for her campaign, too. And if you look at Obama, President Obama, in September, he learned a lot about things. He didn't do anything, and nobody likes to talk about it. It's a very one-sided deal, but I think it's turning very quickly, and a lot of things are coming out, Trish, that nobody thought would be possible. If you wrote this as a novel, it couldn't sell because it wouldn't be believable.
Yeah, we might be looking at a volume 3, I suppose. Let me ask you about all these calls for Attorney General Barr to resign. You know, I see that, and you know, again, you mentioned the politics of the moment, but resignation now for the Attorney General, that's what the Democrats want. What's your reaction?
Well, I haven't even heard that. I mean, it's so ridiculous. He's an outstanding man. He's an outstanding legal mind, and I heard he performed incredibly well today. And for the country, he performed well.
Kamala Harris.
Well, she was probably very nasty. How about these 3 people? 3 of them are running for. 3 of them, they're not doing very well, but 3 of them are running for a particular office. I think you're talking to the person right now. They're running. So you have 3 of them running against me, and they're up there ranting and raving like lunatics, frankly. And they're running, and how is that fair? So you have Bill Barr, highly respected, great attorney general, and he's got to take the abuse from people that are running for office. They don't care about this. They're just looking for political points. And I really think that the American people see through it so easily, Trish. I mean, it's so easy to see through.
Well, I think they do. I think Americans, you know what? They want to know that they have a job and that their neighbors have jobs and that they're going to have some kind of job in the future. I mean, that's why it does come down to the economy. So when we look at 2020, right now you get 3.2% growth. You've got low unemployment. Does that stay? And if it does, in that kind of environment, who do you want to run against?
Well, I don't want to say necessarily. I'm not sure I care. But it looks like Bernie is
really? Because I saw the tweet storm on Biden this morning. It made me wonder if, you know,
he is a sleepy guy. I don't care. No, it just seemed to be what happened is, you know, the firemen love Trump. The policemen love Trump. The military, I mean, the relationship we have, look what we've done for the military, $716 billion. It was really depleted and troubled. So, you know, these people love, and then the firemen or the international comes out, and they always do. They have for many, many years, but they go with the Democrat, with Joe. And the firemen and women, they went crazy when they saw it. They went absolutely crazy because they're going to be voting for me. They're all going to be voting for me. I had it the last time. The heads of the unions voted for Hillary, or as we say affectionately, Crooked Hillary, which turns out to be so true. But the heads of the unions went that way, and the people went my way. So that's
would it have been a harder race had you run against Biden? No, I mean, look, they picked Hillary, who was obviously a tough bet, as it all turned out.
I think Biden would be easier from the standpoint that you will have so much dissension in the party because it'll make 4 years ago look like baby stuff. Because, you know, they're looking to see what they want to do is they want to see if you know, they want to get in. They want the radical left. They want the left movement. And he probably isn't there, and I think you're going to have tremendous dissension, just like Hillary did. She had tremendous dissension with the Bernie people. You know, a lot of the Bernie people, Trish, voted for me. You saw that. People were shocked.
I sure did.
A lot of them voted for me.
Why is that?
Because of trade. I think the Bernie people, the one thing that I do have in common with Bernie is trade, because he knows that the world is ripping us off, and I've stopped it, and I'm in the process of stopping it. He could never do what I'm doing now. Now we're negotiating with China, we're negotiating with Japan, we're negotiating with all of these countries that have just ripped off our country for years and years. We lose $68 billion with Japan. We lose $500 billion with China. We don't, you know, I put tariffs on China. They're paying us billions and billions of dollars.
I know.
And they're negotiating.
So the question now,
they're
negotiating. And where does this go? Do you think you're able to get them to stop stealing our intellectual property? Because look, that's ours.
Sure. I mean, look, it's a very major part of our deal. It's would
you trade that? I mean, with tariffs? And I know I got to let you go because you got a country to run.
I'm a person that believes in tariffs when somebody's taking advantage. If I wasn't able to use tariffs, I found these really great, very old laws that haven't been used in a long time. Had I not had the power of tariffs, and I can sign them myself, had I not had that power, we wouldn't be having great deals. You're seeing the deals we're making, including South Korea. We made a great deal with South Korea. That was a deal made by Hillary Clinton. It was a horrible deal. She said it's going to produce 250,000 jobs, and it did for South Korea, not for us, okay, for South Korea. Anyway, we worked that deal, made it a good deal, but without tariffs, you could have never done it. You could have never done it.
So,
just a threat, because they don't want the tariffs. They don't want the tariffs, and just a threat. So it was great.
And you're doing that with sanctions as well, which brings us full circle back to Venezuela tonight, where we're going to continue watching the chaos. And we know, as you said, all options, sir, remain on the table.
That's true. We have all options are on the table. We'll see. We want to help people. We're not interested in anything else other than helping people. Trish, they're dying. They're dying. They're starving. They have no water. They have nothing. It's incredible. If you would have looked 20 years ago, as you said, if you would have looked 25 years ago, this was one of the wealthiest countries, and now they're all dying of starvation and things that you wouldn't even believe possible today.
I know. Let's all say a prayer for them tonight.
And it's great that you're reporting on it. It's great that you're reporting on it, because, frankly, it hasn't been given enough attention, and you're bringing it out, and it's really important that you're doing that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Mr. President.